Hello everyone, Mark here with Mark's Max Muscle, and we have an exceptional idea for a video today. Old Filthy was the guilty party in the idea, the thinking behind this one. Hey Marks, how do you feel about the 1980 Arnold versus any of the winning versions of Frank Zane, 77 through 79, politics aside, I wonder. Now a little history lesson here. Frank Zane, he was the Olympia champion, 77 through 79. Like Filthy said, and Arnold Schwarzenegger, of course, retired from bodybuilding in 75. Frank Zane hurt himself right before the competition in 1980. He was going for his fourth title. He hurt himself very badly. He was down in weight. And Frank Zane, the type of physique he had, he needed every pound he had to look quite a certain way. So Arnold, that was probably one of the main deciding factors of why he decided to enter the 1980 Mr.Olympia. A lot of people were upset, namely Mike Menzer, but we're going to keep Mike out of this one today. We are, of course, going to see if Frank Zane never did get hurt. Would he have been able to take Arnold? And this is going to be a nice little comparison. I am using the 79 version of Frank Zane. There wasn't a whole lot of photos from the 78 or the 77. Take a good look at that thin skin and conditioning of Zane. Out of sight. I mean, yes, it is a blurry picture of Arnold, but come on, you can see, even with these old pictures, you can see that conditioning of Frank Zane. Not to mention the lag size, that was one thing. Frank Zane needed every pound he had, and he sure had it here in 1979. The legs are probably bigger than Arnold's. I would give it to Frank Zane for sure, just because of the conditioning alone. Here's another better, more probably clearer picture of the front relaxed positions. Of course, Arnold seems to be hitting kind of a most muscular. I don't buy it though. Look at the conditioning, like I said, you can really see here that vascularity level of Frank Zane. And like I said, the lag size, Frank Zane, this is a bodybuilder's physique. Arnold nowhere near in shape, nowhere near in condition, like he told Lou in 75. And Lou, you're not in shape, you need a couple of more months. Well, Arnold, I think you need a couple of more months here in 1980. 79 Frank Zane, far better in my opinion. Here is a side relaxed comparison from 1980. Look how small and scrawny Frank Zane looks. Not to mention Arnold is working the angle. Quite hefty there, making the pecs appear to be a lot larger. He's tilting just thusly, as I so proudly put it. Now, let's show the difference of Frank Zane's here. Look at that. He's quite a lad here. A hardy young lad. Look at the size of Frank Zane. He's showing Arnold what is up here. Look at the size of his pecs. This is Frank Zane, guys. And if you've never realized, I mean, there's a lot more pictures of Frank Zane going around from the 80s. So a lot of you guys don't realize how good Frank Zane really was. Quite a lad here. Look at the size of those pecs. I don't know. Arnold does have a lot of mass in the upper body over Frank Zane, so I could see a novice judge even giving the front relaxed and the side to Arnold. Schwarzenegger will always have that Christmas tree here in the rear relaxed position, even in his 1980 version. Have a good look at the thick muscle in Frank Zane's back. Quite a rugged lad, I must say. All right, I have to be honest. I can't lie to you guys. This is a 1982 or 83 Frank Zane, so this is an 80s Zane, but not the 1980. He was terrible that year. Like I said, he hurt himself, he was down in weight, and he was good here in the later 80s, the 1982, but probably not as good as the 70s. I still say, look at the conditioning, the thick muscle of Frank Zane's back. I'd even score him a point here against Arnold. I gotta tell you, so far, I am impressed with the Zane man. This front double bicep pose is no exception either. Like I mentioned earlier, that lag size that Frank did not have in 1980, he sure had it here in 79. This is an awesome front double bicep pose. Of course, the outline of Arnold. He's always going to be the oak with those big trademark arms. But for any judge that knows what he's doing, I mean, it's clear to see Frank Zane is tremendous as far as the conditioning is concerned here. The lines, overwhelming. Here's another one. This is actually a 77 of Frank Zane, or 76 perhaps, I believe. Just tremendous in the ab work. Arnold Schwarzenegger, not his best rendition here in 1980. And this is his best pose, guys. I don't foresee Arnold ever beating Frank Zane, the 70s Frank Zane. Although, judging solely on this here pose, the rear double bicep, I'm actually quite impressed with Arnold's 1980 version of this rear double bicep. And when I said Arnold couldn't beat the 70s Frank Zane, I meant the 1980 version of Arnold. But he sure is winning this shot, in my opinion. You remember Pumping Iron? He had his rear double bicep primed. And I did the best of Arnold, and I did see that the 1975 rear double bicep, he had his Christmas tree as crisp as can be, and it even rivaled and even bested the 73 and 75 or 74 rear double bicep pose. So this was his last hope to have a good pose for 1980. And I gotta tell you, this rear double bicep pose, it was those rows, those bent over rows and those T-bar rows that he was doing. I'm telling you, adds the thickness to the lower lat meat. Frank Zane, not the best pose here. He's not even really hitting it to a T. I get it. It's an aesthetic way of posing. But still, overall, Frank Zane still has this one. I'm not going to give it to Arnold just because he gets this rear double bicep. It's just simple. When Frank turns around in any of these front shots, it is domination city. Frank Zane just unreal in the front lat spread. And I know, I can hear you guys right now. But Max Muscle, this is actually a rear lat spread of Arnold. I know, and that's not fair. But you know what else is not fair? Surprising the field a few weeks prior to the event with Arnold Schwarzenegger. I mean, the rest of the pack was training to defeat Frank Zane. And you're training for conditioning and deep cuts. If they had known the Austrian Oak was competing, I'm sure they would have got those guns bigger to compete against Arnold. So that's not fair, and neither is this. So there you go. I'm sure Arnold's front lat spread would have been a little bit better. But take a good, sharp look at Frank Zane here with those legs and the X-frame. I don't think Arnold ever would have touched the 70s Frank Zane front lat spread, even in his prime. Here is just another example, one of many examples of just how much more crisp and more conditioned, and he just looks more hard and grainy, Frank Zane is than Arnold Schwarzenegger. Arnold he just does not have that sting that he did before. I'm not saying he's soft by any means, but he's not a bodybuilder when you compare him against a conditioned bodybuilder here in Frank Zane. And this is a classical Arnold pose. Yet another classic Arnold pose. I love this one, the mantis position. Even in this state, Arnold looks awesome. I'm not saying Frank Zane is beating him here, but even Zane has an answer to even this pose. Look at the size of Zane's tricep. Very underrated was Frank Zane's tricep, the mass of it. Compared to the rest of his body, one of the biggest triceps, probably of bodybuilding history because he was very lean everywhere else. So guys, I'm going to let you decide who you think is the winner of this little competition. But I say hands down, conditioning plus plus, Frank Zane. Arnold even looks small here in the most muscular pose. And yeah, Frank does kind of look funny with those pointy elbows. Looks a little bit like a bat. But the conditioning alone, Arnold looks like a pale, tall glass of milk. Something like my own physique. Anyway, if you do think Arnold Schwarzenegger would have defeated the 70s Frank Zane, the late 70s Frank Zane, in this 1980s state, then my God, man, give your head a shake. And speaking of shake, this video's into the 10-minute mark, so pause it and go have a shake, especially if it's been a couple of hours. You need to feed those muscles. They're not going to grow themselves, you know. My goodness, this is an awesome vacuum pose. Yes, you can use this as an ab and thigh. I can. I would. I'd accept it if I was a judge. Frank Zane had an awesome ab and thigh anyway. He wins this competition, if you ask me, hands down. Thank you very much. Oh, filthy. What an awesome idea. And I'm sure this will receive a lot of thumbs ups and a lot of views as well. I expect a big response for this one. Thank you very much once again, Filthy. Keep those good ideas coming. As I often say, you guys make my channel what it is. Most of my top-rated videos are fan-requested videos. And of course, I have to thank these classic legends of bodybuilding, such as Frank Zane. I mean, you can't go wrong with a sport like this, reporting on legends like this. This is a dream come true. It honestly is. Love this sport. The greatest. It's the sport of kings, it's the sport of peasants, it's the sport for everybody. Everybody should be into this sport. Go ahead and tap the subscribe button if you have not already, and go ahead and give this video another thumbs up. Have a great day, guys.